Welcome back if you're back. And if you're in the back, welcome back. Okay, this is the time for exploring the Dharma together. So every single question or thing you'd want to share is welcome. One good way to think about it is what are you working on in your daily practice or not working on that you wish you were? Just to put it out there and get some help or give some help. Matthew, and we'll need the microphone for the people who are online.
I actually have a question that I came up with during our last mind training session. Tim was reading an excerpt from the commentary, which I don't have, so I don't know what all is in it, but the excerpt he read was talking about the Lojong tradition and its place within its place in the teachings. And the text actually compared it to Dzogchen and Mahamudra in terms of like the, I guess the word would be a sort of like level or stage that it's on. And I found that very intriguing because I tend to think of Mahamudra and Dzogchen as Tantra practices and Lojong as more, I don't know, but I don't think of it like that. I don't think of it as a Tantra practice.
Yeah, I see what. And
I'm just curious if we're practicing Tantra when we're practicing mind training, because that's a really interesting, that intrigues me, and I don't really know.
Yeah, not technically. Not technically, because, your questions always open a big area, Matthew. Yeah, but I'll say a few things, and then hope Bill and Dora might want to add in. But the first thing to realize is Tantra includes the Mahayana, the second turning, and it includes the first turning. You cannot accomplish Tantra without those. So all three turnings are in Tantra. Yeah, the tantric practices of deity practice, what's called generating yourself as the deity, the completion practice of dissolving it into emptiness. Those if you're just doing those, like I think I'm doing Tantra, it's fairy story Tantra. It has to be based on the understanding of suffering, the wish to be free of suffering, practicing the path on all those levels. You know how here our four thoughts that turn the mind, the precious human life, the death, the death impermanence, the karma, the samsaric suffering. There's no reason to do Tantra if you don't have those down. Why? Because you won't understand why are you doing it. Why do I, think seeing the world as pure and everyone as deities? Why would I even do that? Well, only to end suffering. So you're back at square one. I got to understand the suffering. So I think what Geshe Zopa is talking about there, and I think Tim, I've missed that class because I was gone. I think I missed two of them. But that's a book called Peacock in the Poison Grove. Yeah, is that the commentary you're using? Yeah. And that's fascinating because the peacock in the Poison Grove is a metaphor for the bodhisattva who can take poison and eat it and transform it into awakening. So the myth, I think it's a myth because I think it's never been proven by Western science, but a peacock can go eat things that are poison and it turns into their beautiful colored feathers, their big tail feather fan. So what does that mean? Well, it's like if you're on a bodhisattva path and you feel angry, you eat that anger, you use it, you see it, and you transform it or apply an antidote, or just by seeing its emptiness. So so back to the first part of your question, where they fit in and why would it be called like such a high level? It's all headed towards Mahamudra, the Great Seal. It's all towards seeing reality as it is, the Great Seal of appearance emptiness. So you know this from being in the mind training group, or anyone who's contemplated Lojong. Those things are pushing your mind towards lack of self, cut the self, self's a fiction, self's a demon it's tricking you all the time. It's delusion and you're stuck in it. Cut it. So in a way, that's the same place that deity practice is going. Do you see how it could go there? It's to get us off of the delusion and the stubborn grip of the delusion. So Buddhism will try everything to break that. Does that make sense?
I think so. What I'm getting from what you're saying is that the idea that came up in my mind stream of sort of like this idea of Tantra being an additional body of teachings that are added on to the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha's teachings are Tantra almost. Well, or that they're not separate bodies of teachings where I can say like
the three turnings are not separate from each other. They are just different turnings, all taught by the Buddha. But every reliable tantric teacher will tell you your tantric practice is completely dependent on knowing and having realizations on what are called the first two turnings. Otherwise, it's just people making up Superman, Superwoman stories.
It sounds like what you're saying is sort of like Tantra isn't trying to do anything that the other teachings aren't trying to do.
That's right. Yeah. That's a really good way to look at it. Yeah, and therefore it is not separate.
Because there's no different aim or different or
right.
like or alternative goal.
Yeah. It's just a method. And cautionary note that always comes with deity practice on even all 4 levels, there's 4 levels, is do it with an authentic teacher guiding you, because you can see how at the minute we step into I'm Tara, okay, I'm Tara, there is they even call it pride. Another translation is dignity, which is maybe more helpful for Western minds. The ego can grab that.
Oh, yeah.
And there have been, as Ken MacLeod says, many casualties along the way of people who got lost in that false pride. The ego grabbed it, and they started doing deity practice and got in a lot of difficulty. Because that's not its purpose. Its purpose is to once again dismantle the self, the grasping at a self, dismantle the self-centeredness, which then dismantles the aversion and the afflictions and the craving. It all goes. But because it's got that trick in it, we call it a trick, or that it's called the fast path sometimes. It's called the resultant path, because instead of just creating a lot of causes, I shouldn't say just, because creating the causes is difficult and hard work, but you are saying, I'm already going to kind of claim my Buddha nature, my purity. I'm going to claim it now. And so you can see how that could be quicker at cutting all the delusion, but it also can, if the ego takes over, throw you into a new delusion, which is more dangerous because now you think that you're it when you're actually down a rabbit hole.
It's kind of like learning foundational, like, algebra versus, like, calculus or something, sort of.
Yeah, and you have to go all the steps, and or when you get into that higher math, you really need a good tutor.
Yeah, you need a qualified teacher.
Yeah. So those are the things I would say about it. It's a really good question.
Thank you.
What would you like to add, clarify?
First, just kind of on a technical level, you put the practices of Mahamudra and Dzogchen in the Tantra. They're not necessarily the Tantra. They are third turning, but third turning does not necessarily imply the methods of creation stage, completion stage.
So Vajrayana is not synonymous with the term third turning?
No. No.
I think that's a very common misunderstanding. I've read that a lot online.
It's very close, yes. It's very close because all of the third turning approaches, whether they use characteristics like the creation and completion stages of deity practice, or whether they just rely on simple recognition, they do rely on this aspect of recognition as the common thread. But it's they're not identical. It's not an identical thing. So that's one thing. And the short answer for why mind training would be placed in that at that level is because it's potent like that. And it also, if you look carefully at the ultimate bodhicitta, the insight, the encouragement practices for insight that are at the beginning, they're not simple things. They're not lightweight. They're not any more introductory than Mahamudra or Dzogchen teachings are.
Yeah.
So the context is really the same. The method of taking and sending can be practiced within the context of deity practice,
that's really cool.
or not. So that's kind of just an additional tidbit. It's too much technical jargon for probably. Generally speaking, it's not necessary to talk about this that much, but you have an appetite for some of these details, so I thought I would kind of shave a little bit here and there. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Pat?
So just to back up a step, I don't really know the definition of Tantra.
The definition. You mean the actual of the word? It's, isn't it thread? Thread, continuous. I don't actually know like that. It's a.
Well,
I'm not looking for like the literal translation, but I mean, as we use it, what does it mean?
The literal translation will just be back at like,
But you mean if you could say it to a person in a sentence?
Yes.
Like
exactly.
that? Okay.
If my brother asks me what's Tantra,
Okay, your
my
brother.
answer is I don't know.
Your non-Buddhist brother. What do
It's
you
a good
say
answer.
to your non-Buddhist brother? Saying I don't know is good. That's about what I was about to say to you. I don't know. What would you say in a sentence? I mean, it's
The introductory sentence is that we don't have a close analog for the tantric or Vajrayana approach to spiritual practice in the West. So that's sort of the first thing to say is kind of like this is not like what we're used to thinking about. And I think the simplest way to talk about it is the difference between the causal path and fruition path.
Or resultant.
And the resultant path, the fruition path. And with the causal path, that's what we're familiar with. In order to get a result, you do a bunch of stuff, step by step. You follow all the pieces in the recipe, and then you bake it, and then you let it cool, and then afterwards you've got some cookies to eat. And there's all that. The fruition path, or the resultant path, points out you already have the cookie. Yeah. It's a means of pointing out how it is that we already have Buddha nature, that it's not something to cultivate. So the methods of identifying ourselves not as an ordinary being, but identifying ourselves basically as the manifestation of enlightened activity, the manifestation of bodhicitta, the manifestation of the union of profound loving kindness and compassion and insight into the nature of things. And the recipe, there is a recipe. It's not like there's no stages. There are aspects of the fruition path where there's just pointing out. But that depends upon karmic circumstances to be ready to catch it. Otherwise, we don't catch it. But the most common tantric method is the method of deity practice, where we see ourselves. This is kind of like we pestered a bodhisattva for so long. It's just like, tell us what it's like. Tell us what it's like. I just want to know what it's like. And then say, okay, try this on. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It's instructions from the bodhisattva. Try on this perspective. Try on the perspective that every aspect of your being, every aspect of your appearance, every aspect of your activity, whether it's your verbal, behavioral, thought, all that is an expression of bodhicitta. There's no aspect of you that's not an expression of the intent to liberate all beings. We think, no, my body is my body. My thoughts are garbage. I talk about all kinds of stuff. I talk about garbage. My body's garbage. I talk about garbage. I think about garbage. No. Your body is the body of the deity. Your speech is the mantra. And thought and memory are waves of great intrinsic awareness. That's from the Chenrezig practice.
And you see everyone like that.
Yes.
So
yeah. Not just yourself.
Not just self, but then I look out and Chenrezig and Taras and Pure Land. And so if someone's screaming at you on the corner, you hear mantra. So think how, if your mind thought that, how different you would be toward that person. I mean, you wouldn't act like an idiot, but, and put yourself in danger way, but you would see some purity there and perhaps be much more helpful. One person said, as Bill was talking, I remembered something that helped me. There was this basketball coach named Phil Jackson. Is that his name? And he used to tell his players, it was resultant. He would say, you've already won, you've made the perfect basket, you're going in there, you're going to make the perfect moves, you've done it. Now go in there and just play it out. And to me, I was like, oh, it's like that. The person who's trying to win the gold medal pictures themselves winning the gold medal, doing the perfect, ice skating move. And that's part of how they get there. They don't sit and go, what did Lama Yeshe used to just constantly talk with Westerners? Man, you have such a low-level view of yourselves. You've got to lift your view. You know, you just think you're some frumpy, dumpy, messy, pitiful creature who can never improve, you know, so let's smoke some dope, you know. Because he was working with all the 70s hippies. And he'd say, you know, you got to give up this low-level view of yourself. And deity practice is one way. But you can see, even as Bill outlines it, why there's such caution against it. Because it's like, oh, now I'm the deity, so everything I do is pure. So if I smack you in the face, which is why Tantra is all three turnings, and your ethics have to be pure. You know, you have to, you keep them that way until you reach a level, perhaps sometime, someday, where you could smack someone in the face for their own good and it actually would be helpful. Like whichever, was it Tilopa hit Naropa with the shoe on the side of his head, you know, and that woke him up. But you got to be a Tilopa. You got to know this is exactly what will push this person out of the delusion. So most of us, we're so far in it, we can't be of that help right now. But we have every moment that potential and that reality. We're Buddhas. We just don't know it. I love that Lama Michael just says it over and over, you know. The guy meets the Buddha and is so impressed with that pure, kindly, glowing presence and says, hey, what's the difference between you and me? And the Buddha says, nothing, except I know I'm a Buddha and you don't. No other difference. We have the very same nature. Not one iota difference. We're different isolates because, you know, you're Pad, I'm Zopa, and Buddha's Buddha. But we are of the exact same nature. How cool is that? So, we just forget. Or don't believe. Or put a bunch of nonsense between us and the truth. Which we can drop. Is anybody struggling with anything about their practice that they would just like some encouragement in terms of on the cushion, off the cushion? Times where we do lose track of our Buddha nature. How do we regain it? Okay, we can just sit quietly for 5 minutes and then dedicate if no other questions show up. So we'll do that. Oh, wait, Cynthia. Okay, headed that way.
Probably asked this before, but it keeps cycling up. How to grow more skillful when I'm in a learning curve,
Mm-hmm.
and the people around me are in learning curves, and how to essentially signal it's okay to, I can forget what you just said, what now? In other words, like if I wished somebody cut me slack about what I had just said or just action, and signaling willingness of doing the same. I wish I was more skillful around that, in that we're all trying our best, we're all learning. It doesn't always go, we don't always see, there can be an insight and a change, and how to allow that to change.
Yeah, but it's not a but. So give me an example, like, because is it more work you need internally, or are you asking you need to say something to people you don't say?
Responding, and as it's on my way out of my mouth, seeing that's a pattern response, that's an automatic, that's an auto speak or an old pattern. And it's like, and then I'm thinking, if I wish I could say, wait a minute, stop, let me, because I know better, and I was just acting from pattern, from habit.
Okay.
And if I do that or can notice that, I'm guessing others might be in that place too.
Yes.
Where, they wish they didn't respond the same way.
And right away they see it, but it's already out. And then
how to be more skillful in asking for, wait a minute, or offering that it's okay to change. It's okay to, wipe the slate.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're carrying that in your mind, and that's really good. That you're carrying, this is all right. The mistake is made. And not, most of the time, we do the mistake, then we add 3 layers on it, and in a way, you are adding a layer already of, I wish, the first layer, I wish I hadn't done that, that's fine. Then, now you're adding, I wish I knew the magic thing to do, and I don't think it's there. First of all, it's all situational. Like there are probably some Buddhist friends you could start doing that with and just say, I'm practicing this, and so can we slow down and just for this minute go, ooh, wish I hadn't said this, how's that going? Nonviolent communication has some really good skills right there, and short workbooks to look at. But in the real world, we're just gonna do it. I got home and hadn't driven a car for 30 days. Got in the car, and oh my God, it was just like within 15 minutes, totally pissed off at somebody, and what I could do was see it. I was like, wow, Zopa, you are just so angry in this moment. And you see it, it starts going down right away. The seeing it takes it down a lot. And then for me, I usually, because that's a a long, hard pattern, I have to apply a more action. I don't want to say seeing it is not action, but a more conceptual antidote of may you be well, may you be happy. I now say to myself, may I be peaceful in this moment. And may I remember I'm driving to keep people safe, not to get there first. So there's no magic bullet. I'm not sure you're looking for a magic one, but I think one thing is cherish our Dharma friends who we can do these things with. And we can even say to them, especially if you're going to work on a committee, bring it out in the committee and say, kind of, dear friends, this is something I'm going to work on. So I might do a blah, and when I might see it, and I might say, hey, I want to stop for a minute and acknowledge I did that and ask you all to just be gentle with me. And I'll do that with you. It's small things like that. But we have to be, after a while of practice, I saw I was getting way too vigilant on myself. Like, you did one, Zopa. Yeah, you did another one. Now you did another one. And you just become miserable, which is not Buddha nature. That's something else. So that is a lack of compassion towards ourselves. We're learners. Lama Tara told me one of the things that just stuck with me so much in retreat. I was just having so much trouble with one of the things we were learning. And the lamas only came like once a month or every 5 weeks or something. And so I had been struggling in my cabin with this for a while, and I built up a whole lot of turmoil inside myself and went in to talk with her. And she just said, you're a mom, right? And I said, yeah. And she said, when your son was learning to walk, how many times did he have to fall down? And what did he do about it? And I said, he didn't mind. He fell down and got up and kept going and fall down again and get up and keep going. And she said, that's what we're doing here. Do it like a kid does. It's no big deal. It's part of the whole game. It is part of the whole. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, let's dedicate and go home 10 minutes.
Well, the one thing that I would add there is that one of the circumstances that you mentioned seemed like it was with another person, like another particular person. And in those circumstances, over time, you can develop between the two of you more of a shorthand. Mm-hmm. So that you can, it's not such a, you don't have to go, file a lawsuit and hire the attorney and have the other person talk to your attorney. You don't have to, it becomes much more shorthand. And then in that, it's easier on both sides to recognize that, this is, and then the more the other person can feel free to point out that, you're being defensive again. Mm-hmm. I actually wasn't. Mm-hmm. I wasn't going to hit you. No need to duck and start swinging.
In a long-term relationship, yes, there is shorthand. Yeah. But then it happens with others.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in a crowd, it's even harder.
Oh yeah.
It goes so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times we just have to look at the conditions and say, in this condition, I'm just going to go internal, see everybody as Buddhas, and calm down. So we can't always, it's that fix-it mind that can get going way too much. Like it's that too vigilant fix-it mind. Like I'm going to have to spot every single thing and do something about it. No. A lot of, at least for me, and I think I know you well enough by this time to know, we, a certain amount of skillful means is refrain. Not reframe, but refrain. So I sometimes just have to say to myself, Zopa, just refrain right now. Just cool down, sit back, see what I'm feeling, self-compassion, and let it unfold. And times I've done that, the thing I thought I had to do something about isn't there anymore 1 minute later. Because the person saw it themselves or someone else helped more skillfully than I would have. And those are so delightful for people like me and you who want to help, which is a good heart, but sometimes it does too much. And, you know, we're kind of on. And it's a compassion to ourselves to say, I don't have to be on all the time. I need to be present with my kind heart towards me and them. Sometimes so many things, because they're impermanent, they just untangle. Like, what do they say? The snake unties itself. You tie the snake up and it'll just untie itself. You don't have to go file a lawsuit or call the Humane Society. By the time you pick the phone up, the snake has untangled and gone off. So it's a trusting in the flow of the Buddha nature. More? Okay. Thank you so much for the questions. They're very good and helpful for all of us. By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state. Thank you. See you soon, I hope.